Hey, welcome to Transformational Truth Podcast on the I Am Network. I am Antonio Matthews, and I'm here to help you navigate truthful conversations that addresses a truth in your life that keeps you stuck in the cocoon stage. We were never meant to live life as the fastest caterpillar. We was always meant to fly. Last session, we dealt with confrontational conversations. That truths that if you're not ready to have conversations about areas of your life that need shifting, then you'll never walk in the experience of optimum living. And that we were never called to just participate in life, but we were called to win at life. And this is part 2 of that dialogue I really wanted to share, because you must understand that the greatest assignment of your life, my coach said this to me. He says, the greatest assignment of your life is you. He said, Antonio, the greatest assignment of your life is you. And if you are concerned more with what you do than who you are, then what you do will eventually suffer, because you have not invested in the carrier of the destiny, in the carrier of the purpose. He says, so you must be your greatest assignment. You've got to take care of yourself. And we discussed this on the last podcast. We discussed it in the areas of your holistic nature. You are spirit, you are soul, you are body. Your spirit is your connection to your creator. Your soul is you. It is your emotions. It is your ideals. It is your thought process, your think. All of that is he says, so if you are emotionally fractured, you will never be spiritually whole. And if you are spiritually whole, you can go in and become emotionally whole. He says, but you got to be spiritually whole, emotionally whole, and physically whole. You got to address discipline in every area of your life. So the greatest assignment, and many people are so lost in what they do, not understanding that they'll never be effective and win if who they are is not just as important. Because I can't do what I'm called to do without being who I'm called to be. And many times we cannot be afraid to address the areas of our life that keep us from living optimally. And one of the greatest, man, let me tell you, my daughter's mother, and I'm getting ready to be real transparent, and when she sees this, she'll probably fuss at me. But I had this conversation with my daughter's mother last year, and I had this conversation, and I had to realize something, because in having this conversation with my daughter's mother, I had to realize something. That in order for me to be the best that I could be, I had to confront some things about me that were really keeping me from being optimum, living my purpose, because I was just participating at life and I wasn't winning at life. And eventually there were some things my gift could not cover. And so my daughter's mother, she's going to be shocked when she sees this. But we there were times where we was just always at odds. Like, I was like, yo, you don't even like me. And this is going on. I'm being transparent. And I had to realize it wasn't that she didn't like me, because I would always say to her, I said, man, you're so hard on me. It's almost like you're mean to me intentionally. And so because when you are confronted with areas in your life that need to change, but that you are not ready to change them, you see any mention of them as attack, when in essence it's really affirmation. Because I used to tell her, I said, man, you're so hard on me. It's like you don't even like me. And what really was, I was disappointing her because I was living way beneath my potential. I was living way beneath my capacity. And it aggravated her. And I was like, yo, I've got people in my life who love me enough to tell me when I'm being dumb, when I'm being stupid, and when, hey, if you keep this up, your gift can't cover that for longevity. And so I'm like, yo. So now I see people that I trust. I'm not talking about people that you can't trust. I'm talking about people that I trust. When they're addressing pieces of me, I don't see it as attack. I see it as affirmation, that they believe who I can be. They just see me operating in a capacity that will keep me from becoming it. And they would always tell me, don't get so caught up with accomplishment that you forsake the wholeness of the one assigned to do the accomplishing. And the reality is, it doesn't matter how well you do a thing. If there is a dysfunction in the person doing the thing, eventually, if the dysfunction is not addressed, eventually it will disrupt what it is that you were called to do. And so I had to get to a space where I developed a relationship with God, and I allowed God through his word to help address areas of me that really move me from gift to anointing. And in that process, it taught me a few things. Number one, it taught me to be certain of who sent me, that regardless to what's going on in my life, I had to get to the point where I was certain that God had work for me to do. That I was certain that God had an assignment for me to do. That I was certain that God had a plan for me. I had to get to that space that I was certain that, you know what, I'm not just here to participate in life. I'm really here to win. And you can't win at life if you're not certain of the Creator's intent for you. So I had to become certain of who sent me. I had to be certain that, you know what, God really has a plan for my life. Then I had to become certain of who he sent. I had to become certain of me, that with all of my flaws, that he still had something for me. That with all of my issues, he still has. So I had to live in that certainty. And then I had to get a certainty of what he sent me to do. Because once I became certain that he sent me, then I became certain and confident in me through him. Then I got to the space where I was certain in what I'm supposed to do. Hear me. And when you are certain in what you're supposed to do, you are certain in who you are called to reach. Because the key component to living in the fullness of your assignment is knowing who you are called to. Because when you know who you are called to, you will stop seeking affirmation and validation from audiences that's not yours. When you know who you are called to, you will stop. And a lot of people are living in depression and living in the space of being unfulfilled or feeling unfulfilled. Why? Because you're trying to seek approval from audiences that were never assigned to you. So you're looking for approval and appraisal from people who will never know and see your value. Why? Because they're not assigned to your voice. Certainty comes with understanding who I'm called to. Yeah. Are you here? Certainty comes with who I am called to. But I can't do what I'm supposed to do until I fix who I'm supposed to be. Are y'all here? And the problem is, when you don't know who you are and you don't know your identity and you're not certain, not only will you seek approval from audiences that are not yours. You will give divine appropriation to human intelligence. So you will give what people proclaim concerning you. You will give them the authority over your existence rather than seeking the approval from the person who created you. And when you give them that power, you live in confusion. Because hear me, God has already defined you. And because God has already defined you, you don't seek definition from the divine. You seek a description from humanity. So you let others describe you when God has given you a definition. And their description of you has nothing in common with God's definition of you. And you walking around here in a quandary trying to figure out, why am I confused? Because you're living off the description rather than the definition. That's a clip. You're living off the description rather than the definition. You are living off how they describe you rather than how God has defined you. And you wonder why your life is in a state of constant quandary. You wonder why your life is in a state of constant confusion because you are living in the description of humanity rather than the definition of divinity. Golly. Are you here? You sure? And so here's some principles. I'd love to give you some principles. Here's some principles that you have to walk in order for you to not just participate in life, but really live and function in life. Here's some principles that you have to be able to acknowledge and to really walk in. Number one, here's your first principle. If you're going to live optimally, you can never allow their assumptions to become your standard. You can never allow their assumptions to become your standard. Because when their assumptions of you and their descriptions of you become your standard, you begin to live beneath the divine destiny God has created for you. Are you here? I can't let what they think of me become the foundation and the principles of my life. Secondarily, you've got to learn to never argue with people on matters you have become certain about. Never argue with people on matters you have become certain. When you become clear and crystal clear on your assignment in the earth, your purpose, you have laid out your values, you have laid out the things that you're supposed to do. Never argue with people who try to sway you from what you are certain of. You hear? When your point and your purpose and your premise of life is solid, you don't engage in banter, because the greater the banter, the greater the proof that your argument isn't solid. You don't have to argue. You don't have to get upset. In the book, The Four Agreements, one of the agreements suggests that don't take it personal. He says, take nothing personal. Why? He says, because when you take something personal, it must mean that which you're taking personal is true. So when you start arguing with people, you must believe what they are submitting to you. You've come into agreement with it. Reject it. Reject it. So So I never argue with people on matters I'm sure about. I never let their assumptions become my standard. Because when I do, that's when I got to start having conversations with myself. What did they say? Why did it trigger me? Did I believe it? Why did that trigger me? Why did that get to me? Why did that bother me like that? And lastly, when you are coming into awareness and coming into yourself, hear me, you will experience skepticism. Never abandon your assignment just because there are people who are skeptical. Let me tell you why. And this is so true in nature. Just because people are skeptical of you doesn't mean their skepticism has anything to do with you. Sometimes people are skeptical based upon historical experiences, not present context. Sometimes their skepticism is birthed out of a place of pain and hurt and triggers and breakdowns where they trusted people and they trusted people's word that they would do what they said they were going to do, and they were broken. And now to them, you look like who broke them. And the only way, watch this, because there are some people who are skeptical of you who are assigned to your life. The only way to clear them of their skepticism is to be who you say you are. You ain't got to prove to them who you are. Just be who you are. Because over time, their walls will come down. Why? Because you are proving that you are not who broke them. Sometimes they are just broken from experiences, and they are broken from times, and they are broken from contexts, and they just need time to trust you. So when you encounter their skepticism, but you sense they are called to you, keep feeding them. Keep showing them love. Keep showing them who you are. Authenticity, hear me, and this is a bar. Authenticity cannot be broken by skepticism. Man, are y'all tripping? Did you hear what I said? Authenticity cannot be broken by skepticism. If you continue in your authenticity, their skepticism will either be erased by your authenticity, or they are just a skeptic by nature. Then they were never assigned to you in the first place. Skepticism cannot break authenticity, just like lies cannot break truth. I tell people all the time, they say, Pastor, why don't you respond when this is said about you? Or why don't you respond when that is said about you? Because I'll never respond and or address lies. If I know they're lying and I know the truth, why am I going to give it my energy? Why am I going to give it my attention? Why am I going to give it space? You never have to defend truth. Truth will eventually defend itself. So you keep being you in your authentic self, and don't allow their skepticism to cause you to be something that you're not. Golly. And those are conversations you got to address with yourself. Why am I responding? Why do I feel the need to respond? Why did it trigger me? Why did it push me into that space that I was angry? Why did I give it that attention? And once you have those conversations of truth with yourself, you'll understand. And you'll better evolve into the metamorphosis and into the person you're supposed to be. Why? Because nobody in the air should be dealing with confrontation with anybody on the ground. Eagles don't fight with dogs. Eagles don't. The only thing the eagle comes down to the ground to get is its food. And then it takes its food back up to its altitude. You don't fight with things that are beneath you. You engage with things in the air. Listen, this has been part 2 of this confrontational conversation, and understanding that my greatest assignment is me. And the only thing I'm asking you to do, if this has added any value to your life, I want you to share it. Share it with some people. Share it with 10 people who are fighting this identity crisis. Share it with 10 people who are fighting, trying to understand and figure out who they are. And then if it's added value, would you share it? And then would you sow into it? You can sow into it from Cash App, capital A, capital M, ATTHEWS. You can share it Venmo, the @, Antonio Matthews, or you can go to the website, www.antoniomatthews.com. I would love your support so that we can continue getting this message out. This has been your Transformational Truth Podcast, conversations that confront truths that keep you on the ground. I'm grateful for those who helped me navigate this space. My producer, editor, Javon Manning is here, as always, helping push this content out. And those of you who are members of Real, who have subscribed and will share this. The only thing I ask, share it if it's added value to your life. And I'll see you next week on Transformational Truth, conversations that engage and initiate metamorphosis. Peace.